Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on? YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I've got another top 10 video to share with you guys. This time around we're going to be talking about the top 10 knives that have stood the test of time in popularity and function, etc. Now this is kind of a confusing list. There are lots and lots and lots of famous models out there that obviously are much older than some of the knives on this list. The consistency that you're going to find with this list is that each of these knives have remained largely unchanged for a long period of time. Let's say that. A long period of time, and at the same time have maintained their popularity and their therefore relevance in the knife world, right? Each of these knives is iconic in and of itself. Some of them I like and some of them I don't like as much, but I can't deny that they just are, right? It's also my list, so there's going to be things left off of this list, partially because it's a top 10 list and not a top 20 list, right? So some people are going to be disappointed that some things didn't make the list. That's just how it is. There's only one fixed blade on this list, and you are looking at it. I am primarily a folding knife channel, right? So this is an instantly recognizable knife to me. I'm sure there are other fixed blades, so I'm sorry. I hope I covered everything that people might get upset about, but I'm sure that I didn't. Thank you so much to all of my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, there is, of course, a link down in the description, and many of these knives actually will be linked down in the description as well. And rest assured, if they are on this list, they are something that I would suggest you experience. You don't have to, but I would suggest you experience for yourself. All right. So, starting off here at number 10, the USMC Fighter, the Kabar USMC Fighter. This is a pretty instantly recognizable knife, and while it does have fighter in the name, I mean, it certainly does work as a utility fixed blade. These are usually, leather wrapped. They've come in, there's a bunch of different forms of the USMC Fighter. Usually they are, I believe, Crovan 1095, but they've come in D2 and probably some other things. Yeah, this is an instantly recognizable fixed blade, and as far as I'm aware, it is exceptionally durable, and it's got a reputation for a reason. If you go to buy one of these right now, they will be the same it'll be the same thing that it's always been. It's a straightforward fixed blade that, as the name suggests, is a fighting knife, but it absolutely can be used as a tool. So yeah, I mean, this is an iconic knife. It certainly is something that you should at least go and experience. And I don't think, they're super difficult to experience. I think you can find them pretty readily. Moving on here, of course, the Ontario Rat. Now, remember, as part of the thing with this list is that in order to make this list, the knife has to be largely unchanged over time. That means, knives with generational differences or, huge changes to the overall design or an element of the design, that would knock it off the list. The Rat, the only change that I can think of is that at some point they were like, all right, we'll offer it in D2 as well. So it's the same thing as the OS 8 one. It's just one is OS 8 and one is D2. Couple that with the fact that this knife is ridiculously inexpensive. I mean, I have one of these and I beat on it all the time. In fact, I've talked about this. Here recently, I had one up, we redid our roof, and there was a crew of 8 guys up there, and we were just tossing this thing around. I mean, obviously we had the hook blades and we had the box cutter, or the utility blades, but we had this Rat that we were just tossing around. It was getting chucked all over the place. The blade was getting run through the shingles and the tar and all that, and it wasn't the best knife for being up there, but it was, and there was nobody being nice to it. It was being absolutely beaten into the hot roof. And yeah, it was totally fine afterwards. I mean, other than the blade being dull, right? So this is I can speak from experience with this knife. Amazing knife, very inexpensive knife, and completely unchanged for a very long time. This is another one that's very worth experiencing. Moving on here, of course, the Benchmade Tilian. Everybody knows about the Tilian, and that's because it's a great knife, and it has been for a super long time. Did these originally come in 440C before 154cm, right? They're right now they're in S30V. Before that, they were 154cm, and before that, they were 440C. That's back when 440C was considered the Superman of knife steels. These have been around for a long time. Yeah, Omega Springs can break, but This thing has a reputation for a reason. Yeah, and I've had multiple Griptilians. I've used them. They're great knives. They hold up. They're built well. Yeah, I mean, if you've never experienced a Griptilian, you definitely should. There's a reason they're still immensely popular, despite the knife world evolving around them, as is the case with every knife on this list. The knife world is evolving, expanding, and it's, all these new things. And wow, this new steel, this new mechanism, wow. And people still buy the Griptilian, right? So yeah, definitely one worth experiencing. Moving on here, of course, the American Lawman. I wasn't sure exactly how old the cold steel American Lawman is. I can tell you how old it is at least. I got on YouTube and tried to sort videos by searching cold steel American Lawman, and I found what I think is the oldest marketing video from Cold Steel. This thing is at least 10 years old. 10 years is a pretty long time for a knife to exist in today's day and age, for anything to exist. 10 years. This thing is just 2 pieces of G10, a triad lock, and a drop point blade. The only thing that I think has changed dramatically on this knife is the blade steel that it's offered in. This thing is almost, I'm not going to say indestructible. It is extremely durable. This is one of my favorite folding knives of all time. I still think it's one of the best utilitarian folding knives out there. And, despite all the cracks that I make about the cold steel triad lock, it really is tough. I mean, this is probably the best form that it takes. Amazing knife. They obviously, this knife proves not a lot has to be changed for something to be, recommendable and durable and popular in today's knife world. Absolutely. Moving on here, a knife that I don't own and don't have a lot of experience with because I kind of like the newer age stuff. I like stuff that I can manipulate with one hand, but I can't ignore the fact that this thing is it doesn't stop. This is the Buck 110 Lockback. I have no idea how long the Buck 110 has been around, but it has definitely been around for a super long time. This has nothing in the way of modern elements. The only modern elements that have been applied to this knife over however long is different materials used in different places. You can still get a Buck 110 Classic. I have no idea what steel it's made out of. Probably 420 HC. Is that what they use? Which is fine. I know you can get an Ultimate Hunter and S35VN and nickel whatever and, the ebony. You can't, but the design and how it functions has basically been the exact same. And people still use these. And as far as I know, they're still incredibly durable. They're still knives that people swear by, Now, it doesn't, unless you mod it or there's some form of it I don't know about, it doesn't have a pocket clip. You have to use 2 hands to open it, right? It doesn't have that like ultra razor thinness behind the edge because of the way that it's ground, but it certainly still is sharp. And is it utilitarian? Is it going to function? Is it dependable? Yeah. There's too much out there to support this knife and what it's capable of to say otherwise. There's always going to be, right now in my comment section, they're saying, there's somebody going, this knife shouldn't be on the list for this reason, or this knife should. All of these knives factually have been largely unchanged for a long period of time and are factually still popular, which is the foundation of this list. So yes, in the case of the Buck 110, it absolutely meets those requirements. Moving on here, as much as I hate to admit it, I do not like the Opinel number 8, but so many people do. There are too many people who like this knife for me to stop it. Here's a perfect example of what saltiness, how effective saltiness is. I'm nowhere near the biggest knife YouTuber out there. Nowhere near. In fact, I'm just a blip on the radar, right? There's a good amount of people who watch my channel, and I'm constantly like, yeah, the Opinel, I don't like it because it's made of wood and it's too simple and it doesn't, scratch my enthusiast itch. And guess how much that has changed how popular the Opinel is? Basically nothing. Me being salty about it, right? As much as someone being salty in my comments section changes nothing. Me being salty about the Opinel and how it's not cool and it's not interesting, it doesn't change anything. This knife factually is popular, factually has remained unchanged for an exceptionally long amount of time, and is loved by so many people because it is I'll admit this, it certainly is a functional and capable tool, right? My reasons for not liking it is because I'm a snob and I like bearings and titanium and all that other cool stuff, right? But the Opinel keeps proving to everybody that it's just, a lot of that stuff just isn't necessary to have a functional tool, right? So yeah, it's on the list. I just can't avoid this thing. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. It is, I think it is still worth experiencing. You know, I looked at it and I thought, wow, I hate how that looks, but maybe I'll like it. You know, I didn't like how some Spydercos looked, and then I got them in hand and I was like, wow, these are great. So maybe I'll change my mind with the Openo. I didn't, but some people might. Moving on here, of course, the Benchmade 940. Again, a knife that I don't know if originally these were in 440C. I actually owned one in 154CM, and I know it's been a while since these were in 154CM. You guys remember the original one? I mean, there's a few forms of this now, right? But the design, again, has remained the same. The same reverse tanto blade, the axis lock, originally the green anodized aluminum scales with the purple titanium backspacer. Oh my gosh. I feel like this knife has been around for at least 10 years, and probably longer than that. I honestly don't know. In fact, anybody who knows exactly when some of these knives came out, tell me. Put it down in the comments section. I think that would be great. And believe me, I tried. It's really, a few of these knives, I could find out actual dates. Most of them, it was kind of all over the place, and it was like, well, it was, you know, came from this, or the original design was actually this, and then it you know, this was born out of it. So I was like, well, which date do I use? I'm not going to do that. That's just inviting more argument. I just know that this has been around for a really, really long time. But if you know exactly how long the Benchmade 940 has been around, or any of these other knives, please feel free to put it in the comments section. But yeah, this is a great knife. Famous for being exceptionally compact and lightweight, but still managing to have a 3.4, oh my gosh, battery there. Thanks. That's great that it's in the screen recording. Still manages to be have a 3.4 inch cutting edge and 7.5 inch overall. I think 7.5 inches overall, something like that. So you have a lot of usable cutting edge, a lot of usable blade for such a small, lightweight design. Moving on here, of course, the Victorinox Classic. How many different, I mean, there's honestly probably the original Swiss Army knife or whatever it was, right? Whatever you know, became this is obviously much older. You can still get the Victorinox Classic along with many other designs that are insanely popular and probably older, but I can't think of a better ratio between popularity and length of time that a design has been unchanged in terms of the Victorinox line than the Victorinox Classic. If I'm wrong about that, again, think about what I'm saying here. I'm saying in terms of a Victorinox design that has remained completely unchanged and is insanely popular, those things all being weighed out. Is there another Victorinox design that has remained unchanged and is more popular than the Classic that has been around for longer? If there is, tell me. I'd like to know. I feel like this is it, but I could be wrong. In any case, it's still going to be on the list because it still meets those qualifications. Very simple, very straightforward. Flathead screwdriver, a mini flathead screwdriver / I guess you could call that a little pry bar scraper. Nail file, you've got a simple blade and some scissors. And I think is it tweezers and a toothpick too? I mean, you're packing in a lot of utility into one teeny tiny little thing that you technically could just hang off your keys. Absolutely. Moving on here, of course, the Spyderco PM2. Now listen, I know that there was a paramilitary before this, but the paramilitary didn't last as its legacy isn't as long as the PM2s or the paramilitary 2s, right? And it was nowhere near as popular. If you're gone back and looked at the regular paramilitary, oh my gosh, goofy. And not to say that the PM2 doesn't have its own flaws, but it consistently makes top 10 all-time folding knife lists, top 10 all-time EDC knife lists. It has always been at the top of everybody's list, unless they just absolutely hate it. But one thing that you can't ignore, this knife is immensely popular and also has been unchanged since the 2 generations started, right? So in this case, it does have a generational change from number 1, but the actual 2nd generation has been popular for so long. It's almost like people forget that there was a paramilitary. They're like, no, the universe began and then the paramilitary too. You know, that's kind of how, at least that's how my brain sorts it out. But yeah, it's a great knife, easy to manipulate, easy to carry. A little bit of an awkward handle and kind of looks like a dead bird, but it's still popular and it's still a great buy. Absolutely. Moving on here, the last one on the list. I don't think many people are going to disagree with me here, and that's the Reeve Sebenza 21. Now, I understand that there was an earlier version of the Sebenza, possibly more than one, and now there's the new 31. But the Sebenza 21, And just think about the changes that occurred even between the generations. Almost nothing. In fact, the 21 remained the same for so long, and only up until now were they like, let's put a ceramic detent ball for the lock face in there. And that was it. That's all they changed. Oh my gosh, one of the most iconic folding knives of all time. Absolutely can be used for hard work. Absolutely has been used for hard work. This thing is, it's very expensive. It's far and away the most expensive knife on the list, but yeah, I mean, whether you love it or you hate it, this thing has been around forever and is just the quintessential, like, if it's not broken, don't fix it type of knife, right? There's so much that's done correctly on this knife and was done correctly initially that they've had to change so few little minor details about this thing. Like, if you look at the original Sebenza, it is so close to what the Sebenza looks like now. It's just insane. And of course, the guy who made it is the grandfather of the frame lock, which is actually historically the Reeve integral lock. And then he also helped develop S30V and S35VN, which are two steels that we still celebrate today. And it's on this knife, you know, S35VN. So anyways, guys, that is going to be it for the top 10 knives that stood the test of time. If you enjoyed this video or at least found it entertaining, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.